So, welcome to Knowing Jeshua,
Our first one.
our first podcast, where we would like to share more about the teachings of Jeshua, of his life, and how that applies in our life, how we can put that into practice.
How we can incorporate it.
Yes.
Because you have to remember things were very different back then. The whole setup was very different. So, we have to remember times change.
Yes. And I think it's so important to also bring relation into grounded action, into put it in our everyday life. And it's great to reflect in Jeshua's life, Jeshua's teaching, but for me, I found that it's really important also to know, okay, how can I apply it now? That's teaching, right?
Yeah, but that's just it. That's what the whole movement is about, because too many people relate to Jeshua when back then, and they take everything literally to 2000 years ago to today, and they're just things that don't apply anymore.
So today we would like to share about one specific topic, talk about it and how it relates with his life, something that he went through in relation to this topic, and then how we can put this into practice in our life today. So the topic is
Self-sacrifice.
Self-sacriifice.
Well, yes, that's definitely a because again, we can see how different things were back then. Because the first thing that comes to my mind, self-sacrifice, is first knowing exactly what you want. Because it doesn't help you're sacrificing anything if you don't know what you're after, what your end goals are. So the first thing that I would definitely, when I think of Jeshua and self-sacrifice, is he wanted to understand things. He wanted to know what the truth was. He wanted to know what's his purpose. And for that, he left for over 10 years. He traveled. And again, we have to realize how different the world was, because the borders weren't the same. The rules weren't the same. You didn't have passports. And you didn't have Telegram. You couldn't just text your parents and say, oh, no, they didn't. They couldn't just text your parents and say, oh, we just passed Persia. It didn't work like that. So you can imagine already the fear for a 12-year-old kid to just pack up and leave. So yeah,
leaving everything behind.
Even your language. So he couldn't even speak the language after they crossed borders. So that is the first thing that comes to my mind, is that just to give up absolutely everything. And that is actually a term, if you look, that's a term that he used throughout his teachings, that's even shown in the Bible, is to give up everything. Can you give up everything?
and you, like, nowadays, like if we look now at how this relates, right? Nowadays, we want everything instantly, right? The culture nowadays is everything instant.
Oh yeah, your package takes 2 weeks to come and you're complaining about it.
Instant, everything in the phone with technology, this and that. We don't want to struggle. We don't want to be faced with challenge. We don't want to be uncomfortable in positions where we're tested, because everything nowadays is so easy in so many ways. Everything is delivered in so many easier ways, and it's a skill to know how to let go, how to start from scratch, how to face yourself and know that you got you, and then you're not by yourself. Right? Like,
absolutely.
It's a skill, and it's something that it's definitely built with a lot of willingness.
Well, let's go back to his time. Okay. And you're right, like you said, today it's so easy. Everything is easy. We have technology at our fingertips. We can communicate. I mean, my dad lives in Southwest Africa, and I just had a chat with him, videos and things like that. So if you go back 2000 years, life was not that easy. If you want to send a message to someone, you had to send it by a tablet, scroll, a parchment, whatever, and just sort of pass it on and hope it gets to wherever it has to get. So the fact that it was harder, this actually sounds so contradictory. The fact that it was harder I think it was actually easier. Does that make sense to you? So it's actually, if you have to make a huge decision to give things up, to change your life, I think it was much easier to do that back then because life was already hard.
It's like you don't have anything else to do. It's like, well, it's already hard, right? Like you're already pushed into a point where you're like, no, I'm doing this. Like I don't have anything to lose because I'm already on this situation, right?
What possessions did you actually have back then? I'm talking about the middle to the lower class, because Jeshua was probably in the middle class. He wasn't upper class, he wasn't lower class, he was very much in the middle class. What did you own? Maybe you had, well, the workshop, carpentry tools, the house that you shared with 5, 6 other people, if not more. So, it was already quite easy to say, right, I want to change things because things are already tough.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with the setup as it is. Today, a lot of people aren't happy with their setup either, but we're so clinging to everything. We got our little comforts, our technology, our phones.
Our little comfortables, our million comforts everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, and that is what people actually don't want to give up, because everything out there is scary and unknown.
We become dependent.
Yeah.
Dependent on them. Well, I mean, at a point where you you get so used to them, and when you don't have them, you're like, I don't want to struggle. I don't want to this and that.
I can just give that example. We went on a hike not long ago with some friends, and me, because I'm very comfortable, I do outdoor skills, so I don't like staying on paths. I like to go off the path because that's where the adventures are. That's where the interesting things are. That's where you learn things. And the people that were with me were so freaked out to go off the path because you might get lost, you might hurt yourself. They've got this list of things that's going to happen to you. And then you go back 2,000 years, not even 2,000 years, but you can just go back. We're going off there were no paths.
There were no paths.
If they were well-used trails, they were always looking for, how can we make this easier, and finding a different path. So we've softened up a lot, because when things become easy, you become soft. This is just the rule.
Hard pill to swallow, guys, but that's the truth.
Yeah,
and that's the truth. Like sometimes we just need to toughen up.
And if an animal grew up in a zoo and you put it back in the wild, it was going to die. It needs a rehabilitation because it becomes soft. It doesn't know how to do the things it's supposed to do anymore. And that's actually my husband actually brought that up. He said, like, we're like in zoos now. We're human beings. We're in zoos actually, because we don't know what life is anymore, what the meaning of life is anymore.
We're very disconnected also from nature. We're very disconnected from that. It's all related also to the system, how it's we got us into a point where we are very disconnected from Pachamama, from Mother Earth, which put us in a mindset of depending on things, instead of knowing that we're super sourceful with nature. Everything is around us. We have everything. And so this dependency, this comes from, the new systems, the new ways, and an approach that it's very disconnected from Mother Nature. And I guess that's also a huge impact on people being dependent.
That's what people call the flow. When you're in the flow, things just work out. I think everyone at some point experienced at least a moment where, wow, when you're in the flow, things just work. Everything around you just corresponds to what you're doing. And it is the natural flow. If you look at plants, if you look at animals, everything just works. There's no effort involved in a plant growing in the forest. There's no effort. It just does it. It's just in the flow of it. There can be a struggle. There can be a struggle, but it's a flow at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
I wonder how the flow applies in humans life. I mean, I know that women and their cycles and everything, yes, but like in general, like for humans.
Well, the flow is the first, I would say, problem with most people is we naturally, and I say we because that includes me, it includes you, it includes Jeshua himself. We technically don't like authority. No. It's just human nature. We do not want authority. We want to be free. We want to do our own things, and that's what's yeah. You're laughing about that, and you know exactly what we're relating to. You know, we don't want authority. We want to do our own thing. But the truth of the matter lies is there is an authority. And it is governing us, whether we want to accept it or not, whether we want to realize it or not. It is happening around us all the time. And the first point of order is actually to realize that there is a point of authority. And if we can listen to that authority, if we can understand that there is one, accept that there is one, and listen to that, then life just becomes so much easier. Again, I'm not saying that suffering ends, because suffering is just unfortunately just part of life, but it makes everything so much easier. I saw just recently a beautiful proverb that said gaining peace doesn't mean to avoid the storm, it means to dance in the rain. Mm. You know, and I think that's the other thing, you know, people have this utopian image of what is enlightenment, for example. They think that, oh, all your suffering ends, all your hardships end, and you just become this shining person. Again, that is a dream world. It's not real. It doesn't work like that, because there's always going to be suffering. And again, Jeshua is the perfect example of that. You think his life became easier when he began to understand God himself? Yeah. If anything, it became harder. But he was just so at peace with the whole thing that it just didn't affect him. It just didn't bother him anymore. Yeah. Because we like to dramatize everything. When things go wrong, we like to throw out tantrums, throw out videos on our phones and show how horrible our life is. You know, we like to dramatize it. And that, I think, is already a big step backwards. Yeah. When we start talking about self-sacrifice.
Because it also, it's very connected where you're coming from when you do these types of things. Which inner space are you coming from, right? Because if you start, you know, bringing all these tantrums and all of this, it's like, from which inner space are you coming? From a space that it's not recognizing who you truly are. Yeah. From a space that is lost. Mm-hmm. You say, yes, there's an authority. And the authority, as you were explaining, it's not that there's a system. There's like, no. I mean, there's many systems, but like there's like a greater organization, power, right, that holds all together, that it's putting everything into the perfect place, in the perfect timing, everything, and it's that knowingness, that knowing that will bring us back into an awareness that we are not alone. We are not alone in the aspect of thinking that you are an individual.
You're not disconnected.
Disconnected.
That's the word.
That's the word. That's the word. Disconnected. You're not disconnected and doing life by yourself, and you wanting to control everything, create life by yourself.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And it's like a small self way of perceiving life, because you're just like your world, this and that, and you're like,
yeah, you're creating your own world. Yeah. It's I was in a city for a while, and I remember looking at all these people walking, especially with their headphones on and in front of their phones. And I thought to myself, they're all in their individual little worlds. And because they got their earphones on, they're looking at their screens, they're so disconnected to what's going on around them. Completely disconnected. So if you're not even connected with yourself, how the heck are you ever going to perform, or how are you ever going to find a reason to perform self-sacrifice? For what?
What are you sacrificing either? Right?
Yeah, what are you sacrificing for? Yeah. Forget about what you're sacrificing. What are you sacrificing for? What do you want? Because most people, you know, if they have their phones and their headphones, they're so out of touch with themselves, out of touch with the world, that there's no reason outside of themselves anymore. So, and they, outside and within.
And within.
Actually, that's more important. If I look, gosh, you know, if I look to the knowledge that I got if you've read the books, you know. What I sacrifice for that, I mean, it doesn't even come close to Jeshua, you know, the things that he did. But yes, I would cut off a lot of luxuries. I will cut off a lot of things of comfort, deliberately put myself through hardships. And this is in every single culture around the world. You will see great sages, great teachers, godlike figures doing this.
Can you give us some examples on what you did?
Well, the first one that popped into my head that is actually quite well known is actually also called, oh gosh. Now I'm actually just hit a point. I can't remember if it was 12 or the Hanged Man in the tarot. And that is actually in reference to Odin. Odin was known, he tied himself to a tree. He tied himself upside down to a tree for, there was a certain length of time. It varies in different talks and scriptures. But the whole point of it was he wanted to, there was a self-sacrifice. He wasn't doing for anyone else. He wasn't doing it because of anyone else. He was doing it for himself. He wanted to attain that. Then you take Jeshua. He went into the desert for 40 days, abstraining from food and water, same as Buddha. Buddha did it for 49 days. He went to sit under a tree. So if you can go from culture to culture and you can find the same significances in all the stories where people just abstain, they go through hardship deliberately. It's not something that's being done to you. You're doing deliberately to yourself. Yeah, you're choosing it for yourself. And that is why Jeshua so often specified, if you want to follow him, you've got to give up everything. And he's not just talking about material items, he's talking about the things that you believe. And that is the toughest, to give up the things that you believe.
Sometimes they're deep down in the subconscious, and you're like, I give it up. I give it up, and I believe this, and you're like, no. Like,
it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. Like, it's just ingrained in, like, so deep inside you. You just sometimes, right?
And that's the other thing, you know, we're in a culture now that people don't want to have their faith or their belief questioned.
Yeah.
You know, you can't talk to people, and that
because there's an ego around it. There's an ego and an identity created on it. And
well, people think that's their identity. They created the identity.
They created that identity. Yeah, exactly.
But if you really want to understand who you are, you have to question it. You have to self-debate. You have to self-contemplate. And I mean, I think for me, the greatest thing was the desert. That's why I'm doing the desert series every week. Because the desert did that. When, you know, I go out into the desert, you question everything. Because you go out there are no birds, there are no insects, there are no trees, it's flat ground. If you haven't seen the desert series, you can just go on the Instagram, you can have a look at it.
Now in Jeshua, Instagram.
Right. And you go out there, and the first day, not so much, but by the second, third day, you've got nothing. You don't have your phone. There's not even Wi-Fi, and you've got no reception there, meaning your phone is utterly useless. So you're sitting with yourself.
Yes.
And that is the point. You are sitting with yourself, and there is nothing to do. There's no television, there's no laptop to switch on, there's no one to talk to, there's no one to affirm the things that you believe. And that is when you start questioning yourself. And that is extremely profound, because sometimes I go in with one belief, I come out a completely different person, because I think the biggest thing that hits is, who are you? Who are you?
Who are you, and how have you been living from that space of who you think you are?
Well, who you've created, because we create ourselves all the time, but is that who we are?
Yeah.
You know, because we say,
mic drop.
Yeah. We say my mind, we say my body, my hand, my heart, my feelings, everything's mine, but it's not you. No. It belongs to you. That's how we always say it, but it's not you.
No.
So who are you? And my advice to that is, because we're talking about self-sacrifice, my advice to that is, get rid of the phones, get rid of the screens, sit with yourself for a while, even if it's at home. Although I don't usually like home, because you always get a distraction. Yeah. There's always a distraction. When my one, I would say, like a spiritual partner, he's on a spiritual level, we get along fantastic. And he went out on his vision quest, I remember. And I walked into his circle in the desert, left him there, and he had a water bottle with him, which is fine. In the desert, I do say have a water bottle. I don't want you to have kidney failure. So, so I gave him a bottle of water, and he showed me his bottle of water, and there was a label on it. And I tore off that label because I said that writing on the label is going to keep him so occupied. I know from experience how one label can keep you occupied. That's why I say if you restrain from your phone and you stay in your house, there's always going to be something that's you're going to find to distract you. That is why even forests are very distracting. That's why I love the desert, because there's nothing there. It's just rocks and sand. There's nothing there to take your attention. But it's a start to just know yourself. And we talk about self-sacrifice, like I mentioned earlier, but self-sacrifice is utterly useless if you don't have a goal, what you want to sacrifice for. What are you sacrificing for? How do you find that out?
At the same time, I think sometimes you just, because not all people have very clear what's the purpose. What's the purpose of, maybe there's people that's feeling purposeless, or there's feeling, just out of it, and maybe they just want to find peace, or they just want to find, maybe they don't have that much clarity of what to. I'm just going into extreme, right? Like people that they're just completely lost, and they're just completely out of it, and they like don't even look at life as wanting to live, or like, like in that case, it's actually, I mean, everything is a gift, but like those specific situations when people go through extreme hardship, when you are like in the darkest spot of everything, is like the great opportunity for awakening, the death of that identity, that because it's so painful. It's so painful. And it's like the painfulness of that forces you to get out, to awaken.
That is one definite thing. Is if you go into a lot of different cultures, you see so many people and situations. I mean, I know people who woke up because of a heartbreaking situation, either death in the family, a personal death, a major accident, some extreme poverty that just sparked them up, that just woke them up. But the things that you mentioned, for example, people want peace. Well, first of all, I can guarantee that peace on the outside is non-existent. There's always going to be turmoil. There's always going to be problems, but you can get internal peace. Meaning that you can go through all these hardships peacefully.
Which that is true freedom.
That's true freedom. That's absolute freedom.
Not dependent on anything external.
Yeah, because that's the problem. People are trying to shape the world around them so that they can
finally feel that
peace,
way.
Yes, and it doesn't work like that. No. It's not going to work like that. No. And the other thing is a lot of stressful situations where people sort of say, oh, now I've got to find a way out. Usually they're temporary, and then it comes with, because you have to remember everything in life is seasonal. Good and bad things, they're seasonal. They're always changing. And if you go through a bad dip and you just sort of ride it out and, oh, now it's better again, and you think it's going to stay better, and then suddenly there's a dip again, that's the cycle most people live in. But yes, you do get the people that when they really hit rock bottom, when they are, I'm talking on a point where they decide either I'm going to live or I'm going to die. There's usually this amazing turnaround, and that is what I love about the story of Jeshua going into the desert. What I love about Buddha going under the tree for 49 days. It's the same thing, because they came to a stage in their life where they said, give me this understanding, the meaning of life, give it to me or kill me. That was very sincere. I mean, they sat there for over 40 days. So that was, they were serious. They were very serious. So it all comes down to that. And what is knowledge? What is spiritual enlightenment? And like you said right in the beginning, we want everything now. So they think spiritual enlightenment comes now. And this I blame on, well, most spiritual groups, most religions. It's always this thing of, all you got to do is this, and you will be enlightened. And
and that's the thing. The problem is that it becomes a path of searching. You can't search enlightenment. You just allow it within yourself.
You have to know yourself.
You have to know yourself. You have to be open to it. It's something to tap into. in the moment. But it's, of course, it's about practice. But it's when it becomes an end goal, it's something that you're looking for in the future that is not achievable here and now. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because then you're not living in the now. You're living now for the future, for that enlightenment, for that, and that's a problem too. Just by, even if the people is thinking in the past or they're thinking, just thinking in the future is the same. And making enlightenment a future end goal, that's also a problem.
Well, yeah, but that's actually very well said. Is because now you're sitting there saying, oh, everything I do now is going to be for enlightenment, and you're going to be so focused on the end goal, you're going to forget the process. So it's
like a constant surrendering in every single moment, right? I think
it's knowing yourself. That's what enlightenment is. To be fully enlightened is to fully know yourself. And it's got nothing to do with people on the outside. It's got nothing to do. It's completely within. It's completely within. But if you're constantly putting all your focus and energy externally, you're not going to find anything.
You're going to be super not happy.
Yeah, no, we talked about very similar in the Monday group. We talked about like drug altering substances that people take to reach enlightenment. But
quick fix.
It's a quick fix. And again, if I have to take all the examples, all the experiences that I had and all the past examples, I'm not going to be impressed by someone sitting in their living room and just going on trips. That's just also that you have no control of those trips. You have no control of what's happening. Your mind is completely like a wild horse. It does its own thing. So you have to be able to sit with yourself. And or any addiction, that includes mind-altering substances, that includes cell phones, that includes devices.
Which cell phones actually condition ourselves to be very addicted in mind.
Yeah, what we think.
Completely lost there. And you want to sit with yourself, meditate, and then you just like, all these conversations wouldn't shut up.
Oh, no, and you don't want to do it. You don't want to think about that. And oh, now my mind's going that way, so grab your phone and... What do the monks call it? A monkey mind? A thought comes and you just grab it, whatever it is, you just grab it.
Oh.
So it's more just, people want changes in their life, but they can't even sacrifice a bad habit, a habit that's bad for them. They can't even sacrifice that. So how are they going to sacrifice one that makes them feel good or that is good for them? Well, I don't actually think there is a good habit that people have that they have to sacrifice, because good habits is what we need. Because good habits is actually what you call a discipline. There's a difference. There's a big difference. So that's why I put it down that sit with yourself, take away the drugs, take away the alcohol, take away the cell phones, take away all distractions, and just sit with yourself and see how long you can do it.
And sit with yourself doesn't mean like that you have to go on a 40 days retreat.
No.
Like, guys, don't go extreme. Like, it's something to do every day. Like, just, yes, lives go on. Yes, there's a lot of things that will be required for you to continue in your daily life. But find the space, honor it.
That's right. Even if you take 5 minutes a day. You start small. You start with baby steps. It's like a child learning to walk. You can't expect that child to jump up and run a marathon in the hurdles. It doesn't work like that. And it's the same. If you want to understand who you are and understand what you want to sacrifice for, you have to start with those baby steps. You've got to learn to walk again. And you do that little steps at a time. I mean, by the time Jeshua went into the desert, you have to think how much he spent a lot of alone time. He's already traveled half the world by himself. He was meditating, praying constantly. He could sit for days. And so it's a gradual process. If you're going to go out into the desert for 40 days, even if I go out into the desert for 40 days now, I don't think I'll be in good condition coming out. So it has to be, when you do something like that, you have to have a very clear focus and an intention of doing it. So it's just baby steps, and it's so easy. 5 minutes a day. How long do we sit on our devices every day?
It goes like hours and hours.
Exactly. So imagine you can just take 5 minutes out of that and just sit with yourself and question, why do I believe this? Why do I think about this? Why do I view things like this? Why do I think this is right and this is wrong?
Yeah.
And when you start realizing that peace within is worth sacrificing for.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that. Let's sit with that. Yeah.
There's nothing better than that. And that is actually what
That's your freedom.
That's what Jeshua said. When you drink from that, you'll never be thirsty again. And that's true. That's worth sacrificing for. It's just to have that peace, because the world is still in turmoil. There's still chaos. There's still hatred, whatever else. But your state of mind is just, it's all okay.
This is nothing in the external, nothing, no person, no situation, no circumstance, no anything that will ever give you that fulfillment, that sense of wholeness, that sense of peace, connection, because it's not to look outside. It's never been about looking outside. It's always been within you.
That's also the old saying, peace begins within.
Yeah. But how willing are we? How willing are we to self-sacrifice?
The moment you try and create peace on the outside, you get wars. That's what a war is. I want it this way, I want it this way. Well.
Oh, powerful topic.
Yeah, we could actually carry on, you know.
Yeah, no, but I think it's great to leave it like that. And yeah, we would love to know what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? What resonated from this with you? What comes up to you for you?
Yeah, and also if there are topics that you would like to hear that discuss, then please put it out there, and we'll see. We can actually put that down and discuss it.
Yeah, agree.
Because gosh, I could go on to this topic for so much longer. There's so much in my mind that I would actually like to talk about.
I want to keep it, digestible. So, well, thank you so much. It was
that was fun.
That was really a great conversation, and small steps, right?
Small steps. Also with this podcast, there's a lot we have to figure out still.
Oh yeah, thank you for the patience. As you see, we're very chill here. I wish this was really helpful and really helpful for you. And yeah, see you in the next episode.